Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about how to get your students to try, and I stress the word try, to understand tab, chord charts, and fretboard diagrams. So here we have everything we're going to need. We're also going to go into how important it is to have your students record you before the end of their lesson on video and audio. Audio is not good enough. Video by itself isn't good enough. You need both. So we're going to start off with the tab sheet. So this is the tab sheets that I use. They are the big suckers where the lines are spaced out as far as you can get them. And just try to use these as much as possible, because the closer the lines are together, the harder it is for them to read. Even the adult students have a hard time understanding tab. Takes them a few weeks to a month, sometimes a couple of months. If I had a nickel for every time I've been asked, what do the numbers stand for again? What does an aneurysm feel like? I mean, it's just a common question. Ironically, guitar music was only used in tab before they ever used notation. I didn't know that till a couple months ago. But anyway, back to the subject matter. So what you need to do is make everything ultra specific. Even if you think they're going to interpret it or understand it, don't assume anything, because most of the time, every student that I work with, just about every student, unless they've been doing lessons for a long time, they just know the drill, they are still fairly confused no matter how explicit you make it. And you're going to have to repeat yourself a lot. So, just do that. So what we've got here, we got a diagram. It tells you the open strings from low to high. I actually have high and low written out here. And everybody thinks that this is the low E string because it's the one on the top. It's not, as we know. This is the low E string because the low notes are on the bottom. So tell them that, but it takes a while for them to understand that it's flipped. The high notes are on the top, and that's just how it is. Have the open strings listed out, have the 0 representing an open string. Let them know there's no way if an open string can be represented with a number other than a 0, because you can't fret an open string. This says open string with an arrow pointing right to it. Again, ultra specific. Don't leave anything out, because they're still going to be confused no matter how explicitly clear you make it most of the time. I would bet money on it, and I never bet unless I know I can't lose. Okay. Then another arrow pointing to the fretted note with whatever number it is on there, and then the notes or the numbers stacked, which indicates that you play however many strings that is at a time with one pick stroke, usually a chord. And then you also have the picking directions. We know that the horseshoe or the staple or whatever you want to call it is a downstroke and the V is an upstroke. Put it on there, put the arrow down, put the arrow up, because they're going to ask why the V isn't a downstroke, because it points at the ground. And I tell them, I don't know, it's always been that way. I didn't make the rule. Okay. And then the fingering on the tab, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, easy, or index, middle, ring, pinky, and T for thumb if you have to use that. On to the chord chart. Okay. So again, ultra specific. Let them know it is it's not tabbed out. It's written out that the black thick line at the top is the nut. The lines going this way are the frets. The lines going this way are the strings. You have the open strings laid out low to high, low, and you have low and high indicated. And then you also want to show them that it looks like this when they play their guitar, if they're right-handed, because the neck is going to be facing this direction. Just takes them a while to get used to this visually. And then the only other difference is if they're learning a chord that's not an open position, which is the first 3 frets, then you just have to put a number next to wherever they start with the position out. Like if it's 7, you put a 7 next to it and then just write the chord shape out there. That's your chord chart. And then you have a fretboard diagram. I've got 2 different ones here. This one's a little bit easier to see. This is one that only goes up to the 15th fret, but it's a lot easier to see because it's just printed out bigger. This one is a diagram of a 24 fret neck. So if you have to do full 2 octaves, it's a little bit better, but it's going to be read and interpreted the same way. So again, you have the nut. Notice it's very bold. The arrow pointing to whatever it is, the strings, low to high, E, A, D, G, B, E. And then, even though you have the fret markers, which most guitars do, 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, and 15, I have the numbers underneath there because, again, it's really easy. That's what they're for. But I couldn't, again, if I had a nickel for every time I see students count from 1 to 5 or whatever fret it is, just remember to tell them that the double dot is 12. That really helps a lot. But even with adults, a lot of times, they have to count frets until they just get used to seeing it visually. So just make it ultra specific. Also, you're going to need extra copies of these. You're going to use this one probably the least amount of the time, unless you have students that are working on scales and lead playing and theory and things like that. You're not going to use this diagram as often. You're going to go through a shitload of tab sheets and chord charts, largely because, especially with kids, which is most of your students, they're going to forget their materials a lot. They forget to put it in the bag. They come straight from school. They don't have time to go home and get their stuff. There's not too many excuses I haven't heard. It's just a fact of life. So just have extra ones of these. You're going to have to write the charts out a lot. Also, get them to put these, as you'll see, because it's got the 3-hole punch in it, in a 3-ring binder. Because what's going to happen is, if they don't do that, they're going to fold the sheet in half like this, and then look what happens when you put it on the stand. So, and then you got to try to unfold it so it stays on there, and sometimes, see, makes you want to bitch slap somebody really fucking hard. So it's just, it's aggravating as hell. You tell them not to do it, they usually still do it. If you can, as we stated in the lesson about having the proper materials for teaching, have a few extra binders. They won't go to Walmart or the dollar store and buy a couple of them. They almost never do it. They'll have put it in a folder, or they will do the dreaded fold it in half, or even worse, they will fold it in another version like this. And this is one of the most frustrating parts of this job, because people are paying you good money for professional advice and they don't take it. And it does the same thing, but now you have to try to bend it back another time. And sometimes, like right now, it stays on there, but trust me, it'll fall again. Okay, so that's a lesson for that as far as that goes. So just make sure your charts are ultra specific and have them record you explaining this. That's the next part of this lesson. Have your students record you. Make sure that they record you pointing to everything, even though it's written out, and have you compare it to the instrument as well as what's written on here, because it doesn't matter how specific you make it, they're still going to be confused until they just get used to seeing everything and relating it to their instrument. So just get in the habit of doing that. So when you record or have the student record you, the first thing you want to do is, most of the time, and I'm not going to do a lot of playing here, but just so you have an idea, you're going to want to record it on their instrument if you can. Like with, let's say, for example, I'm using this guitar in a lesson. That's going to visually confuse a lot of students just with that Tree of Life inlay on there. It's very elaborate. I've even got the dots on the side. It's going to throw them off. So grab their guitar, ukulele, bass, whatever the instrument is, and have them record you on video of whatever the examples of the lesson you went over. If it's a riff, a chord progression, whatever it is, play it at about half speed and then play it at full speed, and have them record a separate clip of each thing you went over. You don't want to have them do like 5 things in one video, because then they can't reference it easily from one to the next. And everybody's got a cell phone these days, so, and if the kid doesn't have one, have mom or grandma or dad or whoever is picking them up that day come into the lesson room 5 minutes before and have you record it on their phone. Rarely ever will they not be able to do that. It's so important because 9 times out of 10, even the adult students will be okay in the lesson room, and then literally they're going to forget later that day as to how to play everything, and then they're going to be confused, and they're going to come to the lesson the very next week, I guarantee it, and tell you they can't remember how to play anything you taught them. It's just very, very common. It has nothing to do with your abilities. This just happens. Most of the stuff has absolutely nothing to do with you. It's just how people are. And again, they're the ones paying you because they're clueless about this stuff. So you're the expert. That's why they come to you. So just make it extra specific and detailed. Break everything down. Literally, if they're having trouble changing the chord, say, D chord, index finger, 2nd fret G string, middle finger, 2nd fret E string, ring finger, or even say finger numbers, 3rd finger, B string, 3rd fret. And then be specific about how many strings to pick, you name it, whatever. And just do it slow enough where it's easy for them to see. And even if you have it written as specifically as I've instructed you to do, and you've broken it down and played it super slow and super easy and made it as explicit as possible, a lot of times they're still going to have trouble interpreting and having it down for the next lesson. It's just the way that it is. It doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. It's just, it takes a while to click with most people. Drives you nuts, drives me nuts, believe me, because it's so easy and second nature to us. And I don't know why it takes so long, but it's just a fact of life. So don't take it personally. It's just something you have to deal with. But you're giving them as much information as you can to get them to where they can get the max benefit out of the lessons and their money's worth. So there's not much else that you can do. If there is anything or any suggestions anybody watching has, please leave a comment below if you've figured out some sort of magic formula or a pointer for this, because I've been doing this as long as I have, and I haven't come up with any magic formulas as far as how to make this easier for the student to interpret it. But maybe there is one. I'm open-minded and think positive as often as I can. So if you have any suggestions, let's hear them. So let's go ahead and summarize here. So again, with the tab, the chord charts, and the fretboard diagrams, make sure you have the lines spaced out, just the good amount of space between the lines. Make everything ultra specific, doesn't matter which chart it is. And then when it comes to the video, have them record you playing their instrument if at all possible, and have them record a separate video for each part of the lesson that you covered. Do it half speed or as slow as you have to. Again, everything ultra specific, and then play it at normal speed just so that they have an idea what it's supposed to sound like when they listen to it. Even with the YouTube feature of slowing the songs down as much as you possibly need to, as you can do increments of 25%, or you can do custom, you can do faster than the album recording. But even when they slow it down, a lot of people struggle with this so much they have a hard time playing it even along with the recording being slowed down. So playing along with your video is going to be a lot easier in most cases. So that is all for this video today. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the bell and the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next time. Thank you.